listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. Today is July. Oh my, I wish it was July. Oh my god, I was literally just talking about how much snow there is outside of my house. It's not July. It is January 18th, 2022. And my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, apparently shoveling all that snow got to my head a little bit.
Yeah, I lament for you the fact that it is not July, because you would not have multiple feet of snow in your driveway if that were the case.
Yeah.
I dodged the winter storm Izzy bullet this past weekend, so my sympathies to those of you who did not. Not my favorite thing to deal with, but we're back and we're here to talk about the thing on everybody's minds today, Tuesday, January 18th, the 10.0 leaks. Yeah. let's spitball that a little bit for the next 90 minutes. Today is a weird day. It's been weird doing the show prep, and we're going to get into it in a second here.
Yeah.
We are 499.
It is 499 episodes. We are now on the cusp of our I don't know what you call that, 500th episode. I don't know if there's actual term for 500 episodes.
That's the best thing to call it.
Okay,
yeah, I don't know.
So that's going to be exciting, and we do have a couple of things planned for that, including some giveaway stuff. So we'll talk about that on the 500th episode. So be sure you listen into that one, because there's some things to give away, which is going to be exciting and fun. Otherwise, this is just like every other week, right? Nothing super crazy special happened, other than Microsoft blowing up the Twitter feeds for everybody. I know. I woke up this morning and I had the same reaction you did of, is it this like April? Did I miss something? Is this a fool's joke? What's happening right now? I don't even know what world I'm in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess let's backtrack a step. As we often do, we talk about the efforts of a better ABK and the situation around Activision Blizzard at the top of the show. Raven is still on strike. Week 5. No acknowledgement from management of the strike. The workers are living off of donations to the strike fund. Please consider donating if you're able. One notable development there is the quality impact of having no QA on Warzone, or having like outsourced or not.
It's outsourced. Yeah.
Like there is some QA, but it's not the in-house Raven QA that knows how to QA Warzone. It's been generating some bad press. There have been some complaints. There was a story in the Washington Post on it this week. Those things are good and can maybe generate some good momentum for the striking workers around Raven. There was also a report yesterday that would have been huge news if it wasn't swallowed up by today's news. But the Wall Street Journal ran an exclusive yesterday that said 37 Activision Blizzard employees have been dismissed and 44 more have been disciplined for their conduct. As a result of the fallout of lawsuits and various revelations about the culture at Activision Blizzard overall, at Blizzard and Activision Blizzard Studios specifically. These have not been like previously publicized dismissals and disciplinary actions. So once again, Bobby Kotick, Activision Blizzard management seem to be sort of trying to sweep things under the rug, put on a happy face, and act like everything is okay.
Yeah,
and
at the least not acknowledging it. At least there's no acknowledgement. Yeah.
Just not disclosing, specifics or anything like that. And but that is all overshadowed by the big news of this morning, which is that Xbox, the Microsoft video gaming brand, is acquiring Activision Blizzard for north of $68 billion, somewhere in that neighborhood, cash. The deal is supposed to close in June of 2023. So this is basically a year and a half away. If everything goes according to plan, don't expect any massive changes to the way either of these companies operate in the meantime. Activision Blizzard will continue as an independent entity until this deal closes. That means that Bobby Kotick will most likely remain in his position as CEO. Probably the C-suite of the board will remain in their jobs as well. We are seeing reports that it is extremely likely that Kotick will exit after the merger is completed, which makes sense. I mean, this is interesting news. There are interesting implications here as a customer, but this is essentially a golden parachute for Bobby and his friends.
Yeah.
They are going to make a lot of money off of this deal, and they are going to, more than likely, they're going to relatively sheepishly exit the games industry without suffering any severe consequences for their actions. And they're going to do so with, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in their pockets, which is disappointing. It would be nice to see, change be affected because of external and internal pressure because these bad actors have performed bad actions. Instead, they're being essentially rewarded. So that's kind of sad to see. This news is too breaking and the implications are too far reaching and all of these changes are too far off for me to really have any kind of a take on it. I don't think there's anything. There's like good and bad elements of this news, I guess. It's a huge win for Kotick and his friends. I think it's like somewhat safe to say that based on what we currently know today, January 18th, 2022, that Phil Spencer is better at his job running a giant video game company than Bobby Kotick is at his. But, this is all based on what is publicized. Like Xbox is a pretty well-managed brand, and I think they've handled, like, Xbox has had quite a few high-profile acquisitions in the last few years. They've handled them reasonably well, it seems like, in terms of the quality of the product and in terms of, the delivery of the service. But, I have no take on the culture at Xbox or anything like that. I mean, we know that this stuff is industry-wide in games, and we know that it's prevalent even in most elements of life and other industries. So I'd highly doubt that everything is shiny and happy at Microsoft, and that this means that as of June 2023, all problems are solved. I wouldn't even remotely suggest that. I do think there's an opportunity for, any opportunity for change is an opportunity for improvement. A better ABK, the Workers Alliance, they have basically said that this changes nothing for them. They're still dedicated to organizing and demanding better working conditions, and management still has not addressed 3 of their 4 demands, and they're going to continue to do what they've been doing. I think that's good, and maybe this is an opportunity to bring more studios into the fold. Maybe this is a united, like, Xbox Studios type of alliance that ends up forming as a result of this. Maybe we get. Activision runs a lot of studios. Maybe this is an opportunity for some studios to eventually make games that aren't just Call of Duty. No offense to anybody who enjoys Call of Duty, but Activision becoming the Call of Duty company over the last decade has been pretty disappointing. And yeah, it remains to be seen what this means for Blizzard. Blizzard, just to make it clear, Blizzard has its own mess to clean up. Blizzard is not a shiny, happy little video game studio that was corrupted by big bad Activision. Activision and Blizzard were made for each other in terms of toxic corporate cultures, as we found out over the last 6 months. If you pay attention to what employees say on Twitter and in other public places, that strides are happening. This is 30 years of toxic corporate culture at the studio. You don't turn that around in a day or a year. It's going to be a long-term process. And I don't, it's good to see a better ABK step up and say this doesn't materially change anything for us. Like the new boss is going to hear the same thing that we're telling the boss right now. But I think there's a tendency. Bobby Kotick is such an unlikable, figurehead of the company, right? Like, he's a money man. He clearly doesn't really care about games. He's not a gamer. He's not one of us. He's somebody who's trying to make money off of the games industry. And he's obviously had some bad impacts across the studios that he's been in control of. But that doesn't mean that, with his eventual ouster, that then Blizzard's problems are solved, so that's going to be an ongoing process and an ongoing conversation, and something as customers for us to continue to keep an eye on. Does this mean that we're going to see Blizzard games show up on the Game Pass service, or more stuff show up on Xbox, or have crossplay or whatever? I don't know. Maybe there might be some interesting stuff like that down the pike, but nothing's going to change in the immediate term. It's really a long way off. And I mean, the idea of a company like Microsoft buying Microsoft is a huge company, right? They're across all of their divisions, they're worth somewhere in the neighborhood of like $2.5 trillion. And for them to buy the biggest third-party video game publisher, for $70 billion in cash, like, this is a kind of a worrying consolidation of big chunks of the industry, which ultimately could be bad for consumers and labor. But the industry is also huge across many other elements as well. There's a lot of big, deep-pocketed companies across the industry still. So I don't know. It's very difficult to try to parse this news out in any kind of, I don't know, to make like a quality judgment of it. This is not something I think anybody thought was going to happen today. Nobody expected to wake up to this today. And we're going to be seeing the fallout of this deal over the course of the next several years.
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack there. You sort of covered the broad spectrum of everything there. And I would say that I feel like the Bobby potentially leaving news is great news. I think his current contract is so ironclad that had they tried to get rid of him before now, I think it was something like $300 million is what they'd end up having to pay him.
Something like that.
So
he was locked in. He was totally locked in.
He was totally locked in. So any way to get him out, I think, is a healthy thing to do, even if, as you described, it's kind of like rewarding him because at the sale, he's going to get so much off of his shares. Since he's one of the majority holders, that he's going to make out like a bandit as far as this goes. But him getting out is great. So I think that overall is sort of the focus of that people should be focused on. As much as there is I dislike this is how it happened. He was so locked in. I don't see how else this could potentially happen. So that's great. As far as Microsoft goes, I mean, we saw this with Disney acquiring LucasArts and acquiring Marvel, and when it did that, a lot of people, including myself, were very worried about what this could spell for that industry and for both comics and movies and TV and everything else that acquisition was happening. We saw this with other companies acquiring, where this can spell a lot of sort of like a dangerous zone we're moving into. But for the consumer, on the consumer level, you can also end up with some pretty exciting things. There was a movie called Free Guy that came out a while back, maybe like 2 years ago. And in that movie, Disney sort of flexed this is what we own in that. So we saw lightsabers used. We had actual Star Wars music used. We then transitioned to using like a Captain America shield and a bunch of Marvel stuff happening. We then transitioned to, and you just watch Disney sort of go, yep, this is one of those movies where we can go, hey, we own all these things, so we can do this in a movie. And you could potentially see that happening with Microsoft, where we see something like Sea of Thieves having World of Warcraft ships added to it as skins, where you could start having Tides of Darkness be an event that happens if you wanted to inside of Sea of Thieves. Like, that is potentially something that could happen, as crazy as that is. You could have, the Halo game that came out recently, you could have skins for that are associated with, different StarCraft or whatever else we want, where they start using this, hey, because all of this is under one roof, we can do cross promotions. Maybe you get discounts for one gaming company by doing stuff in another gaming company's games. Like the cross promotion becomes kind of interesting. So for a consumer, there's a lot of possibilities there. As much as there's a lot of fear of what they now have control over and everything that they can choose to do with it, there's also some exciting stuff there that you could focus on as well when it comes to, hey, you know what? Some of this cross promotion stuff could be really cool. So you never know. Maybe we'll finally get the StarCraft first-person shooter game. Maybe that'll finally happen. Who knows, right? If you throw Call of Duty and Halo underneath the same roof with StarCraft, we never know what might come out of that with Overwatch and everything else. So I think it's kind of exciting on that level. As you said, there's just so much here to see how it plays out. But I think the thing to focus on for everyone is don't expect anything to change with how any of these companies run or operate for the next year and a half. They will maintain as much as they possibly can until that year and a half point comes up. And I guarantee there are terms of sales about certain staff remaining for a certain period of time and certain, projections that were given being maintained or achieved inside a certain period of time that are part of the sale. So I don't expect any huge fluctuations anywhere here for the next year and a half. I think what's going to be exciting is going to be July of 2023 when we see, maybe that's why July was on my mind at the top of the show, July of 2023, where we actually see what some of these changes start to be. Because I think we'll see a lot more from Phil Spencer as we lead into that, and we'll see a lot more communication about what their plan is as far as these studios go and rules and regulations go. And I mean, in the end, I mean, like you can hope and dream all you want when it comes to what could happen. But I mean, for me, I just hope that this ends up being really good for the game companies and for the employees at those companies. I mean, Jason focused on it a little bit there too, of hopefully this means that they can sort of go hands off a little more and let these companies actually start making games again without having a heavy emphasis on profit, right? Like make the games that are wonderful games again and stop worrying so much about how marketable and how profitable that product that you're making can be, and just try and make a really enjoyable product. And I think if that focus can shift, and that's something that can come out of this, that would be wonderful. And that's sort of what I'm hoping for out of this.
Yeah, and I don't think it's out of left field to hope for that. I mean, you look at Microsoft's business model with the Xbox brand, and it's increasingly about the Game Pass platform more than a specific piece of hardware. And I think they are sort of envisioning an Xbox-less future. Xbox as a brand persists through Game Pass, but it's a software service that you subscribe to, and via cloud gaming or whatever, you can access it from many different devices on many different screens and things like that. And it's not that, you're paying a retail price for this piece of electronics that sits in your living room for 5 years, and then you replace it with the next one that costs another 15% on top of that every 5 years. I think it's smart in a way, but the question is, what is the impact on game development as a whole as the industry shifts more towards that model? Does the technology hold up? Does this result in good gaming experiences for most customers? And in a world where you have to be on Game Pass or a competing service in order to, have a chance in the marketplace in terms of attracting players and making money off of your game. Like, what does that do to the face of game development? And these are questions I can't answer. I don't know if anybody can answer them right now. I do think there are severe problems with the Game Pass model overall, but the in-house studios at Xbox should be well taken care of. You think of a world where like Diablo 4 launches, day and date as included with all Game Pass subs on PC and Xbox. Like, that's a huge win for that service. Diablo 4 is going to be a monster release whenever it ends up coming out. It'll probably honestly come out after this merger takes place. So, Xbox is really pushing the Game Pass service, and sort of the deviceless version of Xbox is, I think, the future of that brand. And I think that was a big driver in them acquiring Bethesda last year. And I think it's certainly a big driver here. They want to have a huge menu of games. And I think when you're Microsoft Xbox and your goal is to sell as many monthly Game Pass subscriptions as you possibly can worldwide, you don't want, 5 studios working on various versions of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
You have a Call of Duty. You want to provide a broad menu of stuff for people to sample because they feel like that's worth their Game Pass dollar. So yeah, I feel like Microsoft Xbox has different goals in the marketplace than what Activision Blizzard has had over the last 14 years or so. We've seen Activision consolidate studios, close studios. We've seen studios that used to make sort of charming character-based platformers become part of the COD machinery, just line up on the COD assembly line. And I don't mean to denigrate Call of Duty for people who like it. It's not my kind of game, and that's fine. I understand that Call of Duty is a very popular and successful game. It makes a lot of money. A lot of people really like it, and that's great. But the way Activision has been structured, it's the only thing they can afford to make beyond a certain point, right? Like there's no reason to be pouring capital into making stuff that isn't Call of Duty, and that's not good for people who don't like Call of Duty. So, hopefully in this environment, we will see some cool games come out of this partnership because the concerns are different and the model is different. I don't know if I'm comfortable living in a world where your game is either on Game Pass or you can't afford to operate your game. Like you can't sell it. You can't run a game. Like, I don't think that's good for gamers, and I don't think it's good for game development. I don't know. With this kind of like seismic industry news, there's just good and bad elements of it all wrapped together over and over again. It's like a good idea wrapped in a bad idea, wrapped in an even worse idea, but then there's a silver lining, and it's a lot to grapple with right now. I mean, we'll just have to take the ride and see what happens. And I mean, I guess the most immediate question for WoW players is, as of 2023, are they going to roll the WoW subscription into Game Pass, or is there going to be like a buy up where Game Pass includes WoW or something? It's interesting. I kind of see Microsoft being hands off with that. Yeah. Like they would probably like to get you into the Blizzard ecosystem via Game Pass, but they would also like your $15 on top of your Game Pass subscription for WoW. When they bought Bethesda, they therefore bought Elder Scrolls Online, and there's like an ESO Plus subscription, right? I believe it's called, which includes some extra features. It includes access to DLC and some monthly perks for being a subscriber. That is not included with Game Pass. Like, you can play ESO with Game Pass, but you don't get the perks of ESO Plus. Perhaps we see something like that where it's like, okay, well, you have a WoW trial account attached to your Game Pass account, but you have to subscribe separate. Like, that would be my guess. But, if they did, I wouldn't mind saving a few bucks a month. I know. Every month on my Game Pass plus WoW subscriptions.
Or if they did actually decide, hey, you know what, we're going to roll this into one, and it's just a $5 add-on or something to have the World of Warcraft subscription, because they now have sort of flooded the rest of the Game Pass community with this many more people by pulling all the WoW subs into it, right? If it ends up being that, then you could end up paying essentially close to the same amount for your WoW sub, but having access to way more content, which would also be another interesting thing of just getting, like, I personally, I don't have a Game Pass account at the moment. I don't pay for any subscription with that. I've never been a big Xbox gamer. It's not really been my thing. So for me to sort of like them, I am their target inside that situation of, we want to get people like this guy into our, large Game Pass system. And if they can do that through going, hey, you know what, you pay for your Game Pass now as what you're going to do, and then you pay an extra $5, and that gets you your World of Warcraft subscription. And so now you can play World of Warcraft, but you also have access to all these other games. Go check out all these other games and studios, and like that. Right. That to me is, there's some potential there. And again, we're tinfoil hatting, which we don't do a lot on this show, but it's certainly something that I felt this news, as it's just resonating and just starting for people, was worth us chatting a little bit about here at the top of the show before
it's impossible not for it to cross your mind when you read this headline, right?
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about World of Warcraft, because that's why we're here today. So this past week in WoW for me was me starting to explore even more the court event in Venthyr. I hadn't actually, I'd done a couple of them, but I hadn't done a ton of it. I've sort of been farming up anima, farming up souls, and then upgrading my base. And eventually I got to the point where I've maxed it all out now. And it's like, okay, I got to start actually paying attention to this thing, because I've now put the effort into maxing it out. It's kind of neat. I didn't realize there were so many ways to extend the duration of the event. So there's a lot of different consumables you can buy that extend the duration of it, which lets you do more during it. And There's all these recruitment quests for I knew there was a bunch of recruitment quests for bringing people into it, but I didn't realize there was quests. Right, one of the quests I'm doing right now is to unlock different revelries that you can have at your party, and that means that you can go out and I had to go back to Molten Core and over to like Jade Forest and to Borean Tundra and whatnot and collect all of these materials so that they can have these proper revelries at the party. And that unlocks the ability to use that at the party. And so I just think it's neat that they incorporate so much of the rest of World of Warcraft, the rest of Azeroth, for you to travel around and check out when you're actually doing some of these things. I guess it's been a long time since I did a lot of these sort of quest chains for a Covenant where you get sent back to the old world to do things, but it was pretty fun to do that. So I enjoyed going around and collecting all that stuff up, and I'm looking forward to doing this week's as I now know more about the event and how to extend it and, have different combos. So I did some Wowhead searching and found out that using the blank invitations, you can change around exactly who's arriving, and there's ways to optimize who's arriving at your party and how to make them happy and what events to take place and what things to take place. And I think it's neat I love optimizing things, so I think it's neat to sort of look at that and be like, okay, can I get the best reward possible? Can I force the best reward possible? A lot of the rewards involve reputation and gaining a lot of reputation with particular individuals who visit your parties, who then get you more rewards. And so I kind of want to max out the system is the feeling that I have right now. So that was a chunk of my week, just focusing on that kind of stuff and making sure I had the anima and the souls and stuff to do it. We also did our normal mythic clear. I've just been doing the last 2 bosses because we've been getting in people's alts to do split runs, so we have to get them actually geared up enough that they'll be able to trade the normal gear from the next raid. So I'm just doing the last 2, which is made for some fairly relaxing evenings, but which is kind of nice. You sort of hang around and have a stream up and chat with people in Discord while you wait on your turn to rotate in and do those last 2 bosses. And then we did a sale run yesterday for gold, obviously. And I always like to specify because I don't want anyone to get confused.
Right. That is what sale run is supposed to mean.
It is. It's what it's supposed to mean. And so I actually got to funnel someone, which I haven't done in a while. And for those who don't know, when you are buying a sale from a raid team, you can choose to buy funnels, which are essentially, if you buy a sale, you are just along for the ride, and any loot that drops off a boss that you loot, you just get to keep. When you buy a funnel, it means that they bring along someone else who is your armor and gear type, who any loot that drops for them gets traded to you. So people will often buy 4 or 5 funnels when they do a run, so that they can be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go into this run. I'm going to have 4 or 5 people just giving me all of the gear that they get to make sure that my character gets geared up very quickly inside this one run or this 1 week, which is cool. So I actually got to funnel someone, which I haven't done in a while. Apparently leather funnels weren't as popular, so that was great. I got them shoulders off of KT and gloves off of Painsmith and a couple other pieces, and it's always nice. You always feel really, when you're a funnel, you always feel really bad when you just have a really bad loot night. You get like maybe 1 piece of gear and you're like, man, was that really worth it for this person? Like I didn't trade them anything really. So when you actually can get a couple of good key pieces, these are both Dom socket pieces, one of which being that 246 item level, that felt really good. So I felt that was a good night overall. And yeah, like those runs for us now take like an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes to do that heroic clear. And so with the carries that we have along, so that feels really good as a source of that. And we typically get these days like 300k or so per raider from doing those runs. So it's a nice way to sort of bolster your bank account as we head into more content. So there's a lot of our team. I don't know how many people do this, but our team has gambling add-ons where essentially you do a who wants to participate, press 1 to participate, and then everyone rolls between 1 and whatever amount we decide, and that amount is gold. And so whoever rolls the lowest has to pay whoever rolled the highest the difference between their 2 rolls. The most common one we see is 150k, which I sometimes participate in these just for caring.
That's kind of high stakes.
There's a lot of gold that changes hands in our raids. There's people who roll like 10k or 15k, and someone rolls 140k, and suddenly it's like, here you go, 125k going from this person to that person. And so that happens a lot. There's a lot of gold that bounces around within the team. There's a lot of fun that happens with it. like I said, I have not been in a position where I've had to give people gold or I've had to receive gold. I have always been in the middle ground, and I just feel safe being in the middle ground. So it's nice of me to receive a bunch of gold. At least I'm not losing out or something, right? So I participate sometimes, but not as often. But yeah, there's a lot of those little mini game things people play to keep raid fresh when you're doing it, and sale runs are something that can be a little bit monotonous for teams. And so when you can spice things up by essentially being like, hey, you know what, you're going to get 300k from this, so why not gamble a little bit and see if you can get a little more out of this run, is kind of a fun thing for some people to hop in on. So yeah, so we did that. This week itself, we do our Mythic Clear tonight, so I'll be in for probably just those last two bosses again, which I think we're doing first, which I'm kind of excited about, because then I sort of have the rest of the night off, if that's the case, unless they call me in to support on something. And then otherwise, yeah, I think I'm going to be diving more into Venthyr stuff. Although I really do feel like I'm torn at the moment, because right now, based off everything happening PTR wise, Kyrian looks like it's going to be the Boomkin thing again. I still doubt that's so hard because of what happened at the beginning of the expansion. Like, I just have this like total bias and doubt about Kyrian ever being good for Boomkin. However, like, if, you know, people basing things off numbers are like, this is what's looking like what's going to happen. And so then that makes me go like, oh, do I need to go and start working on their covenant more? Because I've sort of just left it stagnant since the beginning of the expansion. So is it worth me going over and starting to focus on that? So we'll see where I get to with Venthyr stuff this week. I'll probably be running Venthyr missions no matter what to try and max out their followers, because, oh my god, their followers are terrible. As someone who has done Night Fae for so long, the Venthyr followers are terrible in comparison. So it's very hard to complete.
Kyrian ones are no picnic either.
I know, right? Like, it's just... All right, anyways. So I'll probably still be focused on that, but maybe I'll bounce around Covenants a bit this week and just get things rolling a bit more on Kyrian's side, you know, dump some anima into the well, make sure the buildings are all maxed out so that I can, and at least the anima conductor, you know, is going more, so that I can worry less about, you know, when I do switch, having less anima from all the world quests and having access to all the stuff I want to have access to. So maybe I'll start that road this week. But otherwise, yeah, it's, you know, same old week. So we'll see what happens. How about you, Jason?
Yeah, I should probably be doing what you're doing, because that's kind of like smart, at least to do some different stuff and check it out and see the features they put in the expansion, and maybe round out another covenant or two to have some flexibility. But I just don't have any drive to do that. I feel like where I'm at, like what I'm dealing with, I'm comfortable with. I like the play style. It suits me pretty well. So I don't really have any big desire to switch it up come 9.2 right now. Now, in a couple weeks, I may be kicking myself, but I kind of doubt it. I guess we'll see how the game actually plays out. We've been keeping raid pretty consistent. We actually had a pretty healthy group this past week, but man, I'll tell you what, one thing that we're really having is just like brain drain. Like, people do not show up on time. When they do show up, they are nowhere near ready to step in and raid. I don't have anyone maining a warlock right now, so that means that there can be no summons. If somebody needs to switch a tune and run all the way back, like, we're just sitting there waiting. We have so much downtime in raid right now that it's actually kind of bumming me out. But you know, I also don't want to be a real stickler about it, because I'm just glad people are making an effort to show up and, you know, get some bosses down. But that's something that just can't fly when progression starts back up, because we'll never get anywhere. You know, again, we ended up raiding 3 nights because Sylvanas wasn't dead by the end of Wednesday. Of course, we go in Sunday and one-shot it. So, like, I make everybody show up at 7:30 on a Sunday night, you know, for one boss. And, you know, before 8 o'clock, we're done, which is cool. We still didn't get any bows. I still didn't get the shoulders I need. Like, the Sylvanas loot is still stingy, but one thing that was cool was we had one of our longtime raiders show back up after a really significant absence. I didn't really think he'd be back anytime, maybe ever, like certainly not this expansion, but he wanted to play this week, so we got him ahead of the curve, which was cool. I mean, we kind of straight up carried him, but like, we had a good enough group where we could carry him through heroic Sylvanas. You know, Sylvanas is not like a super tight numbers check for us at this point, but the mechanics are so devastating if you don't understand what you're doing that you can easily just completely tank a pull that was going well. But he at least had the wherewithal to, you know, not kill us, even if he wasn't contributing much else. Other than that, man, we had a heartbreaker after raid on Sunday in Mythic +20 Theater of Pain. I think we missed the timer by about. It is the last one that I need for to have all 8 portals that you can currently unlock. We missed it by like 12 seconds. But the writing was on the wall early on because we made a couple stupid mistakes. We had too many deaths. We had 11 or 12 deaths, which that right there is, way more than the amount of time we were over the timer by. We had a spot where on the floaty platforms, one of our hunters disengaged to a spot that he couldn't jump back onto the platform from. And it was like right before the tiny platform that has the Death Winds guy and the Bone Spike guy. And we really didn't have a choice but to wait for him to come back because on Fort Bolster, we couldn't afford to start that pull down our best DPS.
Right.
That cost us a ton of time. And we've been having this issue in Theater of Pain where when you're going towards Gorchop side, is that his name? The guy with the hooks.
Yeah.
All these abominations have very similar names, so forgive me. But there's the mini boss to the left. There's a T intersection in front of that boss's room. There's a mini boss to the left. And the other bomb that pats around. And it's really hard to get that mini boss to move all the way out safely if it's a caster because they stand there and do really long animation casts. They don't really respect line of sight right there. So they'll sit in the doorway and cast. And if DPS isn't mindful, you end up tagging up the padding a bomb, which you do not need for completion percentage in almost any reasonable route in Theater of Pain. And it also creates an extremely dangerous situation that can result in deaths and even full wipes, which is actually what happened to us on this run. So even with those huge mistakes, we were only 12 seconds off. So we just need to get the Keystone luck to cooperate a little bit over the next couple weeks, and I'll get that last portal unlocked. I mean, I do think Theater is maybe the hardest dungeon in the pool this season for a variety of reasons. So no shame, and we haven't done it a lot. So I think it's only the second time I've tried it on +20. So it wasn't like a crushing defeat. It was like, oh yeah, we can do this. This is certainly doable, but just kind of disappointing that we're not done yet. There's just still more to be done in Theater, but then that'll be the last portal. So, that'll be really cool. But outside of that stuff, I really just, I'll check in and do tables, and I'll do Queen's Conservatory, a couple times a week.
And that's about it. Man, I miss my conservatory. It was so profitable and lucrative. My God.
It's very lucrative. Yeah. You get a lot of stuff out of there. And the other thing I do too, what I started doing is like, I just save up my completed table missions for Anima. Because then when everything resets, I go to my sanctum, I pick up the get 1,000 anima quest, and then I go in the conservatory, I pick up that 1,000 anima quest, I clear up my table, and then I turn in those 2 quests, and then I'm just done.
Yeah.
I don't have to go back and fiddle with that again like later that day or whatever, which is nice. But yeah, I spent some time this week like cooking. I had to make a bunch of feasts. My bank was getting a little gnarly, so I had I figured whatever, let's get some consumables going for, I think we're probably still at least a month out from patch, but it's closer than it probably feels like to a lot of us right now. So it was time to get some fish out of the reagent bank and into some feasts.
Yeah, I regularly restock all of my consumables on my character. I'm one of those people who likes having full stacks of things. So it's like all my oils and potions and everything. It's just like as soon as they start to get low, I'm like, okay, let's just top everything back up again. Everything's all clean and pristine and
once
ready.
You get to single digit stacks, it's time to hit the auction house. Yeah.
My brain right now with my bank is going, all right, augment runes. Are we getting a like non-consumable augment rune? Are we getting that again? We always get one in the last patch of the expansion.
We are getting an infinite rune for sure.
And then it's, okay, the infinite rune, when are we going to get it? When do I start liquidating what I have? And you start trying to figure out that balance between when's the best time to have the stockpile of augment runes, because you've been able to get them from the mission table this whole time, and they're just flooding in. When do I start liquidating all of my augment runes so that I can be sure that whether it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever it is, to be able to unlock that permanent rune, that I have that all liquidated out before I get the permanent rune, or at least I have very few left. So I need to make a decision sometime in the next 3 weeks, I think, about what I'm doing with my augment rune stash that I've been building up over this time, so I can actually get some profit off of it, which would be kind of nice.
I think you better be You should be liquidating them now, I think. I mean, I'm probably holding too many of them myself. It's just the market's going to tank, and if you want to make any significant money, you got to get them listed sooner than later.
There's this
magic moment.
There's this magic moment that happens when new prog hits, and no one can hit the permanent rune yet, and so everyone needs runes for new prog. So it's like if you can hit that point, they can go from like 200 a piece to like 500 or 600 a piece. Suddenly, that's the magic moment to liquidate. It's tricky, man. You gotta have to suss it out. I'm gonna have to feel it out and see what's going on with the augment runes. We'll find out.
That's a tricky balance. You're playing a commodities market here, so you gotta get in there while it's hot.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about what's going on this week in World of Warcraft. Okay, this week is the Wrath of the Lich King time walking event that's going on right now, where Sign of the Scourge buff is up, where Wrath of the Lich King reputation gains from combat and quests is increased by 50%, and characters level 50 and above can access time walking versions of the Old Kingdom, Gundrak, Halls of Lightning, Nexus, Utgard Pinnacle, Pit of Sauron, are all those dungeons you can check out, and of course as a quest you can pick up in Oribos to complete 5 of these dungeons, which gets you a reward. It gets you that 220. The reward of normal sanctum loot. That's what you get out of doing this. And there's also Ulduar time walking happening, dropping 226 eye-level versions of Ulduar loot for max level characters. And you can get the old 10 and 25 man achievements. They're sort of all consolidated together, so you can knock out those achievements if that's something you want to do. This is always a trip down memory lane when these time walking events roll around. I just having to go today to Molten Core to collect up all the pieces for my Venthyr thing. I was like, man, this content isn't content I have seen in a long time. I threw a Star Surge at a Core Hound and hit it for 5 million damage and was like, that's a number I haven't seen in a long time either.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing when you go back and do old content, and I feel like time walking events are great for that, which is why we want them so much more frequently than we currently get them. I love all these old dungeons. Nexus is obviously a fantastic dungeon. I remember having a lot of frustrations with people flying the drakes inside of that place. Utgard Pinnacle was always the speed run, as long as someone could actually land and hit the spears for bringing down the Drake boss. That was one of the big things in Pinnacle. Pit of Sauron was always a slog. I never really super enjoyed Pit of Sauron. People would always get mechanics wrong and not hide properly behind the big rocks on that frost boss that's out there. Man, oh man, it's just lots of memories. So I love time walking events. I think they're great events for the game. And, there's some neat rewards you can get from things.
Yeah, it's not super lucrative for like max level characters that have done like any current content, except for the raid. The raid could be potentially an interesting thing to do. I find Old War's better with a bigger group because it sort of, I think it's just the 25 man version of Old War that they kind of scaled down. It's not the 10 man version, so it can be a little tricky. But if you want to get your raid team together and have some variety, Sanctum's a little boring. I mean, you do have Old War this week. Don't forget about that one. It can be a fun thing to do. And it occurs to me, I think I have the old dungeon rotation in here. Didn't they refresh this at 915? I think they did, and I don't have it in front of me. They have changed some of these around. I think they got rid of Pit of Sauron, and they got rid of Utgard Pinnacle, and I think we got Utgard Keep and Soul Forges, or whatever the short one was from the Icecrown Citadel patch. So I think it's the first time we've seen this rotation since the patch, which is probably why I don't have this appropriately laid out. But yeah, so good riddance, Pit of Sauron. That one was just too complicated for uninitiated people to do. I do love Utgard Keep, but it's sad that Utgard Pinnacle had to go. I'd like to have both of the Utgards, but yeah, these are cool dungeons for sure. This is a great event. I think that they have situated time walking as being not, the rewards aren't good enough in this expansion for it to really warrant your attention if you're playing endgame.
Yeah, they have to be really careful with what they do when they make changes, like changing out which dungeons are here and which dungeons are there. But I am glad they're doing it. I think the rotation's a good thing overall. So we will have to wait and see what happens next with these. I know we have Legion time walking now. Are we going to get a BFA time walking next year? Could be something next
I
expansion.
mean, we should get it as of the 1.5 or 2.5 patch of the 10.x cycle.
Yeah.
That's going to be real. I think BFA time walking might be the weirdest addition once we get that far in, but it's inevitable.
It is inevitable. All right. World bosses this week. We got Nurgash Muckform, the Big Dredger and Revendreth, and we also have Morgeth, the Tormentor of the Damned. Both of these give you 500 anima for killing them, so they are both worthwhile knocking out. The Nurgash Muckform does drop particular memories, which are the legendary recipes that you need for crafting particular legendaries. Which ones is Nurgash dropping for us, Jason?
So Nurgash, we always try to thematically link what happens here. The Nurgash and Revendreth is spooky. It's like all the bad guys. So you got the DKs and the Warlocks are the memories that it drops. So you got Frenzied Monstrosity for DKs and Erratic Felkor and Ajikir's Madness for Warlocks. So if you have a DK or a Warlock and you do not know all of your legendary memories, make sure to go knock Nurgash over this week.
Yeah. As far as our weeklies for this week, we have Coldheart Interstitia and Mort Regar in Torghast, as well as Necrotic Wake and Halls of the Dam are the dungeon quests you can pick up inside Oribos, and Rated BGs and Epic BGs are the PvP quests you can pick up inside Oribos for the week. So if you're looking to run any of this stuff, be sure that you pick up the quests ahead of time. And if you are looking for a particular wing of Torghast, you got the Coldheart and Mort Regar this week, so decide which one you might need or not need, or whether you want to run it at all, because sometimes you hit wings where you're like, you know what, this is not a good week to grind this out. Let's wait for a different week to grind this out where I get to see wings that I really like more than this.
Yeah, these are not my favorite. Maybe if you get like a good rotation with the blessings and stuff, but
that's possible. Yeah,
like Mortrigar is just annoying because you have some weird layouts. It's hard to do it like fast. You have the ghosts that leave the poop everywhere, which is just obnoxious.
You know that chain jumping around platform to platform way, which is super not fun.
It eats up so much time, and like it makes it hard to weave in your super bar button. Coldheart is a little bit better, but the angels constantly landing on your head gets really obnoxious. So yeah, if you've been looking yourself in the mirror going, I gotta run some Torghast, I gotta get this over with, I would say this isn't your week unless you need a particular memory from one of these two wings.
Yeah.
They're certainly not my favorites.
Or if the blessings worked out. I think that's a good point.
Sometimes they stack up and it's like, oh, this is gonna be a good run.
Yeah, the magic one for me was the week when I was doing my renown grind and I kept hitting the blessing of the first 3 things you attack have 75% reduced health. And so I literally was able to stealth to the last boss of each floor and hit the last boss of the first 3 floors, which meant that I reduced their health by 75%, so I could actually stealth through a whole wing, kill the last boss, go to the next wing, stealth through the whole wing, kill the last boss, go to the next wing, do that, then hit the vendor floor, and then go to the final boss, which meant that I could clear a wing in like 6 minutes. It was like the fastest Torghast runs I could possibly do, and it was amazing. So if you can hit those like magic buffs, that is certainly something you have to keep in mind. But otherwise, yeah, you're sort of stuck with not a great rotation for the week. All right, Mythic Plus wise, speaking of Jason trying to get a plus 20 done, this might not be the week for Jason with Tyrannical, Sanguine, and Storming, meaning that boss enemies have 30% more health and inflict 15% increased damage. When slain, non-boss enemies leave behind a lingering pool of Ichor that deals damage to players and heals their allies. And while in combat, enemies periodically summon damaging winds, which knock you up in the air. And this is like if you're trying to do Theater of Pain, which has a lot of confined space platforms and hallways, and you're dealing with dropping sanguine puddles whenever something dies, and winds that knock you up into the air, and all the bosses that are in there are all tyrannical, this might be a trickier week to try and get that particular one done. So good luck, sir, if that's your plan for the week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this week is a bit of a mixed bag. Both Sanguine and Storming have gotten significant nerfs in the last year or so. Sanguine a bit longer ago, the pools went down like a 20-second duration, which is a bit more manageable. You're going to want to pick out casters or ranged attackers first to kill them and drop their Sanguine Puddle so that melee attackers can be dragged away. Storming saw a more recent nerf where the whirlwinds always move in the same direction and they dissipate once they make contact with a player. The contact doesn't damage you, it just disrupts you. So this is not terrible. Trash should be very fast this week unless you have some real problems with a Sanguine Puddle, right? Like if something dies where it's not supposed to and then something else disengages into it and shoots you for 20 seconds, well, that's 20 seconds you just wasted, or more. Whatever damage you put into it, you wasted, and then, you know, the duration was wasted. Try to bring some knockbacks or other types of displacements. You know, some creative use of fears or something can be really good here. Now, Sanguine should have basically no overlap with bosses unless you are dragging trash into bosses, which is really just no longer in vogue. Once upon a time in Mythic Plus, that was the thing to do to really get the most out of trying to time a key or whatever. We saw that. It's like MDI meta for a while there, but nothing you fight in a boss encounter is going to leave a Sanguine Puddle. You are going to get storming whirlwinds, which can be a problem on certain fights more than others. Anywhere where you have to have very specific positioning, or
like a gore chop, for example, trying to avoid hooks and
that could be rough. Although you could use it to bounce yourself back from a hook so that you can reposition. You know, you can use it a bit creatively. I'm thinking more like even something like Sanguine Depths, where you know you have the last boss where you have to you know, get directly in that bubble at that exact time. Even third boss where you need to run around and collect the orbs so that you can protect yourself. Like if you hit a whirlwind and you get locked out of collecting a couple orbs because you got knocked back, then you might just die.
Or the second boss where you could essentially get knocked up in the air, which then makes you get hit by one of the traveling beams that rotate around the ring. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of fights in that dungeon that require really specific positioning, or at least in very tight windows they require specific positioning. So that could be tricky. Overall, I think this is an okay week, honestly, for Tyrannical. Tyrannical bosses are hard. That is the thing. Like, if you're trying to push to a new rank, if you're working on Keystone Conqueror, Keystone Master, you're trying to get Keystone Heroes done, and you're working your way up, like, that first time you do like a plus 15 Tyrannical boss or a plus 20 Tyrannical boss can be a bit of an adjustment. When you have that much health on it and it's hitting that much harder, you know, your team's got to be ready for that. The thing I like about this week is, for the most part, you can plan to rip through trash packs and hero and just load up on bosses and try to nuke them as much as you possibly can. That's a big plus, but that's not to say that it's going to be easy. It's just that you at least have the opportunity to make up time on trash. You can pull as big as you really want to. You are going to get more whirlwinds, but like, they're not that hard to dodge. And if your tank is soaking them up or something, for example, like, they don't affect much of the rest of the group. And if you're mostly pulling in, you know, melee packs, you can kind of time out your Sanguine Puddles. So you can, you know, there are some weeks where it's like, it's a Tyrannical week, but it's also spiteful. So it's going to be really slow going through the trash. At least this week isn't like that. Or like Bolster or something, where it's like you don't want to drag in combat mobs that are low health into the next pack. This week you can chain pull, you can pull bigger. You're just going to, the confounding factor there is going to be, you're going to get more whirlwinds, but if you could deal with that, you can pick up some time in those hallways. So mixed bag, I would say overall. Not the greatest week, not the entirely worst week, but hard dungeons are hard. So that's what you're signing up for when you're doing this Keystone stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point that as much as this week looks kind of difficult as far as the limiting your space that you have to play with, it doesn't really overlap with bosses that much. So as much as you're dealing with the Tyrannical week, which can kind of suck, Sanguine and Storming don't necessarily make that boss substantially more difficult comparatively to some of the other overlaps that we have seen in the past. And Necrotic being one of the worst ones that you can see on a Tyrannical boss, is having Necrotic in there as well. So at least there's that much that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, Tyrannical Necro is it can be a bad time.
Yeah. All right. PvP brawl wise, we got Gravity Lapse. That's Eye of the Storm with modified rules. Once every minute, gravity turns off. All players are launched up into the air, and then it turns back on again, and you fall. Be sure you don't fall into the pit on either side. This is one of the earliest brawls we saw. It's interesting. It was like their first attempt at playing around with something. So, I have to give them some like, okay, this isn't the most creative thing on the planet, but sure, you did something, so you got to try it out. So I'll give them that much. Yeah.
Yeah, it also works.
It does.
I don't think it's ever been taken out of the rotation like some of the other brawls. So that's a win. It kind of fits the theme of Eye of the Storm. It's not like I don't know. It's not a brawl where you circle your calendar and go, okay, I'm queuing up for brawls this week. It's Gravity Lapse. I don't think anybody does that. But.
With a name like Eye of the Storm, it would have been cooler if it was a giant tornado that moved across the map at a reasonable pace, and if you got caught into it, it threw you into the air, right? That would be more interesting to me.
What about like a big floating eyeball on top of the battlefield that just randomly zaps people with like a laser beam that leaves trails of fire on the ground?
Sure.
It's like a literal Eye of the Storm. And
okay.
Every week we just like turn these brawls into something completely terrible that nobody would ever want to play.
All right. We also have a micro holiday happening. It's called the Scarab. Basically, on this date, the Scarab gong was rung, opening the gates of Encourage. Represent your faction by gathering supplies or slaying Twilight and Karaji forces. The winning faction gets to fly their banner over the Scarab gong for the rest of the year. This is going to happen from January 21st to 23rd. And you basically just go down to Silithus and collect up a bunch of materials and complete a bunch of world quests and kill a bunch of elites. And it's the highest scoring faction gets to fly their banner there. Last year, the Horde took it away from us. They had the first year. We then had 3 years running on Alliance side from 2018 to 2020. And then the Horde took it back in 2021. So we'll have to see who's out there participating this year and which faction's going to end up taking the flag banner back on top of Encourage.
Yeah, see if the Horde can tie it up or another notch for Alliance. This is a cool event. I love the theming of this because this is like a holiday that people who live in Azeroth would kind of celebrate or whatever, or at least like mark in some way, like the anniversary of the Scarab Gong ringing and AQ opening and stuff. Like, it's just so thematically cool. From a gameplay standpoint, it's kind of just like go grind stuff in Silithus. It's not like super fun, and the reward is kind of fun for bragging rights, but I feel like it's at the moment, I don't know. In BFA, like we were at least over there once in a while. Like you might accidentally see AQ. You're not going to see it this year. You didn't see it last year, and you're probably not going to see it next year. So, the bragging rights thing is a little bit watered down when nobody's hanging out where the banners display. It does look cool when the banners roll out, and like you see them over the AQ gates. I love the theming of it. It's just how many people are really going to be participating in this year? I feel like everybody's in this like WoW hangover mode. It feels like engagement in the game is very low. We're at the very downside of a big patch. We have a big patch looming, but it won't be out for this. It's like, are people going to log in specifically on Friday to do Call of the Scarab? Like, I don't think so. So it'll be interesting to see, like, on its face, you just think, okay, well, NA Horde runs away with this because the only people left playing are Horde in NA right now. But, anything could happen, I guess. With as little engagement as the game feels like it's getting right now, it probably wouldn't take much of an effort from either side to win.
So my issue with this, Michael, I mean, yes, that is certainly a point you make. It's also, this is a event that took place before the era of smartphones. This is an event that is old enough.
Yeah.
I do wonder a little bit of how many players are actually even really aware of what the opening of the gates was and the event was and how it took place and the impact that it had, if they aren't classic players, right? If you weren't someone who's like, hey, you know what? I really want to play classic WoW, so they went back and played the classic World of Warcraft version that came out, so they could experience the opening of the gates. Or if you weren't there the first time around, does this micro holiday really resonate with people at all? Like, is it really one of those things that, like,
yeah,
I think that's a curious question, and it's one of those micro holidays where And I think it's neat to remember this really momentous, impactful occasion that took place. I'm starting to get the feeling of seeing this in other aspects of World of Warcraft and other aspects of my life of how many people even remember that this was a thing and the importance of it when it took place, or they were just born after this took place and are now playing World of Warcraft, right? Like,
right, like if you're reading
point.
about this in a book, right? Like you read the Warcraft Chronicles or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, this is what AQ was. Like, I don't know, is that cool still? Maybe I don't know. I think it's definitely worth like memorializing it in the game going forward. But like, man, I did a little bit of this in 17 and 18, but I haven't done it since, and I don't think I'll be doing it this week. Like, it's cool that it's there, but it's just, I don't know, man. The actual like moment to moment, okay, go to Silithus and just like kill stuff and turn it in. Like, it's not. Maybe if it was just do whatever in the game and then you get some kind of mark and you turn the marks into the guy in Silithus, like.
Yeah.
All right. I think, okay. Let me clear up my emissaries, which I haven't been doing. Let me do some Korthia stuff, which I haven't been doing. Like, I'll play the game for, I'll get some other benefit, but like just doing it specifically for that is for me, it's a little dry.
I think, and this is the point that you're making that I think is really important, that I think Blizzard could learn a lot from, and I hope changes in next expansion, I hope changes going forward, is finding ways to tie current content and current content rewards with older content to get players actually enjoying doing some of the older content. If going back and doing these world quests to contribute towards this gave people Valor and Soul Ash and Soul Cinders and like all these other currencies that people currently care about, or Renown, going back and doing these gave people Renown, people would be all about going back and they would be AQ farming like crazy. They'd be all over it, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is there isn't any of that motivation for going and doing those activities. And I do feel like Blizzard could sort of, get behind putting more encouragement into players participating in these sorts of events by making them relative to current content. Not just hey, you're going to want to go do this because you just want to enjoy the experience of it all. And I understand micro holidays are about the experience, not about permanent rewards. I just feel like if the rewards that came from them were abundant enough in other content, people wouldn't feel like they're quote unquote missing out by not participating in the micro holiday, right? If doing your emissaries and doing everything else gave you all this other currency as well, doing world quests, doing everything like that, they all gave you the currencies that you looked for, then it wouldn't bother you if you missed out on the AQ event. But I think it'd be neat if the AQ event was something where people are like, hey, you know what? I could go and do my world quests in current game, or I could go and do these cool AQ world quests, which might be a little bit easier to do, and I'll get the same rewards as if I was doing my current world quests, right? That to me would be neat.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's also that thing of like, it's a micro holiday, so we don't want you to feel like you're missing anything important by not participating in the micro holiday.
Yeah.
Look, I get that to a degree too, but it's like, so maybe that means that the Call of the Scarab shouldn't be a micro holiday. It should be a separate event somehow. Like, I don't know.
Keep it a micro holiday, but make the rewards that come from participating in it equivalent to rewards that you do for doing the live game. So you're not missing out on anything, right? You're like, you literally,
the choice.
It's a choice of, it's an alternative to your current gameplay. When you log in, you go, hey, you know what? I could go and do my normal world quest rotation, or I can just go and do the AQ stuff. And that gives me the exact same rewards as I would get for doing my normal, right? That to me would be interesting, because then you suddenly have players going, hey, it's not that it's, I'm missing out by not participating in this event. It's just an alternative to what I would normally be doing with my time rewards wise. I think that is interesting to me. That's how you save it, as far as, making sure play, because you don't want that. I mean, there's a discussion we'll get into shortly about reputation and stuff happening next expansion, next patch, and how they're choosing to do unlocks for different items and whatnot. And I want to sort of broach that topic then, but it's something where being able to allow players to feel like they're not missing out on something because they weren't able to play during those few days that something was happening, I think is really important. Like that they aren't disadvantaged for not being able to play Tuesday, Wednesday when they can only play Saturday, Sunday every week, right? I think that's important. And so, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something that just feels unrealized, or like a potential that's untapped here by the way that something like Call of the Scarab currently works, right? Because on its face, it's just not attractive enough. Like, I don't think anybody, well, maybe not anybody, but I think most people listening to our voices right now are not going, that's right, I got to log in to do Call of the Scarab. I haven't played WoW in 2 weeks, but I got to log in Friday to do Call of the Scarab. Like, I don't see that happening. And
Right.
maybe it is, but like not on any kind of scale where it's like shifting, the player base, like creating some kind of fun environment to play in, across the region. So I don't know. I think it's cool, but maybe needs a little bit. Yeah, whether it's you can get stuff for it elsewhere in the world, it rewards stuff that's relevant to what you're doing in the current expansion, maybe a little bit of both. Maybe it gets broken out into its own kind of category where it's not like strictly a micro holiday. Something. I think mixing it up would benefit players a lot.
Yeah. No. All right. PTR wise, they continue to do a lot of revamps to classes. So if you are a particular character or playing a particular class, be sure you're just sort of keeping up to date on PTR news, or just wait until the full patch notes come out and then check them out, because they're just tweaking everything. There's lots of damage numbers going up and down, lots of tier sets being changed, all sorts of things still being screwed around with. So I'm not going to recap them all because they change literally weekly. So let's just leave that alone and say, if you're interested, great, go check it out. If you're not interested, that's fine. Just wait till the full patch notes come out and you can check it out then, and you'll be able to actually see what happened with your class.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I would say to that end is like, okay, we have seen no significant hot fixes to the live game in several weeks now. Like, they've been back from winter break and we haven't really seen anything. A couple bug fixes, but nothing major. And most of what we're seeing on PTR builds is sort of numbers tuning and fiddling with abilities and tier sets and stuff. We're not seeing big feature updates. So, that usually means that we're sooner than later we're going to see this patch out the door. Because we're not reshaping the world of the game. We're changing the numbers of the abilities.
We will say that they have added the legendary belt. That is now actually a thing that you can do the quest chain to progress, do the reputation grind to progress to get your legendary belt. That's the Cinch of Unity is what it's called. Remember, this is going to be a belt that grants you your current Covenant's legendary ability, meaning that if you swap Covenants, the belt will swap with your Covenant to make sure you always gain that Covenant ability. We've had a lot of discussion about the item itself and how they could change or do something different with the item itself. The one thing I will emphasize is the rune carving power is something you also learn, meaning if you wanted to put the Cinch of Unity's power onto another item, like your shoulders or your rings or your whatever else you want to craft it on, you can do that. That is something you're going to be able to do. So just wanted to emphasize that as well. Now, it's actually that's you don't even have to do the quest chain necessarily, because Setzer Toron in Ouroboros actually has legendary belts that you can just go and buy and equip and play around with on testing. So they wanted to get in people's hands really quickly, so you can actually just go and get it. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit, because there has been a lot of discussion about the reputation requirement for getting your belt. It's been changed to revered. You need to be revered reputation in the new area for you to be able to actually get this belt. And a lot of people are discussing timelines as far as what that means. Does it mean it's going to take 4 weeks? Does it mean it's going to take 2 weeks? How long does this actually mean? Right now, we don't actually know. No one actually knows how long it's going to take. People can make guesstimates about where it's going to be at. But the thing to remember is the reputation that's available right now, the loop, takes about 25 to 30 minutes to do. You can add an additional 3 or 4 world quests to that loop through the cipher of the first ones, so that you can actually have even more reputation gain coming in. And we have no idea how much reputation you're going to gain from all of the quest chains that are available there, that are actual storyline-based quest chains. Which means this could take a week. It could take 2 weeks. It could take 4 weeks at most. The 4 weeks at most is what most people are running with. That 28 days is what most people are running with, because that is what it would take if you didn't do anything but the base loop. So if you didn't get your cipher, the first one's unlocked, if you didn't have any reputation gains from any of the questing that actually takes place there, For story questing, it would take 28 days of 25 minutes to 30 minutes a day of playtime to be able to unlock your belt. That is not what it's going to actually take because of all the other things I've mentioned, which is what I want to emphasize. However, the conversation that I started earlier that I want to finish here is, what if you're a player who can only play on Saturday and Sunday? Does this now take you 4 months to accomplish? Because you essentially are missing out on world quests, which happen every day, which give you reputation so that you can actually be able to purchase your belt at some point when you hit Revered. I wanted to just discuss better systems, and they have better systems in the game already. Valor is a great system for something like this. If the goal of doing this is to gate the ability for someone to get their belt behind a certain period of time, if the design behind it is, hey, we want people to be able to get their belt on week 3 or week 2 of this patch, but they have to play every day to be able to do that, that to me I think is a failure, because you have to play every day to do it, and not every person can play every day. The Valor system is a good system for something like this, because it means if you can only play on Saturday, then you can play for 5 hours on Saturday, you could earn your entire week's worth of whatever it is you need to get on Saturday for that week, which you can't do with World Quests. You have to log in every day to do them. So I almost wish that, well, actually I do wish that when they're looking at systems like this as far as gating goes, they decide on the timeline they want people to be able to get access to something, which they know. They know, hey, you know what, by Mythic Week we want X, by 2 weeks into Mythic we want Y. Like, they know those sorts of timelines for what they want as far as character power access goes, that they choose a different system than Reputation, where Reputation is something that, yes, you know, we saw with Korthia killing rares over and over and over again, or being able to kill smaller mobs to try and get chance drops, etc. All this RNG drop based off of, you know, which Reputation I'm happen to drop, sort of spiked people up and down in Reputation as far as what you could earn every day. I would much rather not have character power-based systems tied to that. I would rather have character power-based systems tied to something that's consistent like Valor, in the sense that, hey, there's a cap, that cap goes up every week. You can earn that cap at any point during the week. If you can only play for 1 day, earn the cap that 1 day, you've gained the power for the week, congratulations, you're done for that week on earning that whatever it is barrier towards your next character power jump. And I hope that at some point we see a shift in design towards those sorts of systems for character power, and away from something like Reputation, which punishes players who cannot play on a regular basis every single day. The same system would affect catch-up for players, right? Because when you log in, if you've missed the first 4 weeks of Valor, that's fine. You can earn a ton of Valor in a day, because your cap is the same height as everyone else's cap has been for that, towards that character power. Which means if you play for, you know, you take a vacation for a week and you actually play during that week when you haven't been playing WoW for 2 months, you can earn your entire cap all the way, catch yourself all the way back up in that 1 week with everybody else. And I think that is much more of an attractive way to approach this game than saying, no, you know what, in that 1 week you can do your 25 minutes of daily quests every day, but you're only going to be a week into this thing that's going to take you several weeks to complete. So I hope they revisit how they're choosing to do some of this power unlock. I have zero issue with cosmetics and everything else being tied to reputations. I think that's great. I think it makes sense. You earn a tabard or a title or a mount or whatever it is, an enchant, a cosmetic off of these sorts of systems and reputation. I don't think character power should be tied to it. I think that's an unfortunate decision to make, unless it's something like a gear piece that is easily found in many other places. Like if you're talking about, you can get 226 boots off of this reputation vendor at Revered, or you can get 226 boots off of this drop from a dungeon or from this crafting piece or from this, that's fine. When it comes to like a legendary belt, which gives you an additional covenant power, let's really look at this system and decide whether or not it needs to be tied to reputation. I think that's a mistake, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for what constitutes like a maybe a casual player. I mean, to somebody like me, for example, if you say, okay, do this half-hour dailies every day for X amount of time, and then use this other feature to get additional reputation, and then do these other things, and then if you do all that, you can hit this rep threshold in 2.5 lockouts or something. Okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to sit there and do that, and I'm not even going to think about it, really. I'm not going to complain about it too much as long as the moment-to-moment gameplay is pretty fun. I'm not just like spawn camping a rare that I need in order to max out or whatever. I think Korthia actually was a pretty good example of that. You could max out Korthia in, I don't know, maybe an hour a day or so, maybe a little bit longer, depending if you got lucky or not. And then you could still do stuff out there if you wanted to, but the diminishing returns kicked in really hard. But there was always something happening. You were only really like camping a particular thing if you wanted to completely max out your map for the day. And even at that point, like, you knew that you weren't seeing a big return on your time investment versus 8.3, where the entire outdoor gameplay was just camping rares and particular quest targets and something like that. I felt like I spent a lot of my time in 8.3 just hovering above the ground waiting for a spawn. That's not super fun, I think they have done kind of better implementations with that kind of stuff in this expansion. But to the casual player, logging in consistently every day, finding that half hour a day, and the thing that you want to do in that half hour is to do your quest loop. That isn't really how a lot of players approach the game, and it's not what they like. I do think you give the example, the Valor system. I would even give an example of something like the Renown system. I think these are ways that they have done sort of like what they set out to do with the reputation system in more modern and better ways, where it's like, I invested time and effort in this activity and I got a reward out the other end that the game expects me to have, whether it's item level, whether it's a particular, reward from the Renown system, whatever. In this case, like, having your Covenant active ability enhancing legendary is not like a suggestion for 9.2. It's not a mount, it's not a pet, right? Like, this is part of your character power progression. You need this regardless of what content you're doing. This is a thing that the game sort of expects you to have, and that you're going to benefit from using no matter what content you're doing, from raiding to PvP to dungeons to Torghast to outdoor stuff. If you're in combat, you are using this gear, right? I think we've seen much better implementations of ways to present this to players, that players earn these types of rewards without doing a daily, half-hour long loop around a questing zone. And people have disliked that. Not everybody dislikes it. I like it. I like doing that. I like having a reason to log in. I like being in the outdoor world and kind of feeling powerful because I have cool raid gear or whatever. That's an element of the game that for me was really lacking up until Legion. Like, it had been missing for years. But I understand that a lot of people really don't want that as well. And so I think there's a happy medium there that you can establish. But as far as we see at this point, like, you are going to need to be on top of your rep for a 9.2. You're going to need to go do your dailies. You're going to need to use the cipher to unlock more activities and rep rewarding things that you can do out there. You should probably prioritize that. However, that system ends up shaping up when it ships in terms of maxing out your rep on a daily basis until at least you get to Revered. I will say, if the way this really plays out is that the person who invests the most effort into their rep gets their Cinch of Unity 4 weeks after the patch ships, that will be an extremely protracted Revered grind, right? We're not even talking about Exalted here. And that would be kind of a pretty bad design failure. I have to think that there's going to be opportunities to earn more rep that's going to reduce that timer quite significantly. If not, I think that is a big mistake. But yeah, overall, like, I would have no problem with them, going forward in 10.0 or 10.1 or whatever the next, similar thing where it's like, okay, this is post end game gear, right? This is some perk that you're unlocking, like detaching it from rep and having it be its own currency or own progression system. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to play half an hour every day, but I do want to play 4 hours on this day, and I should, be able to earn the same progress. I mean, it's a tricky balance to strike, but I think doing, they've had some good success over the years with the weekly currency caps that we see with PvP and now with dungeons. Like, I think that's good, because if you play a little bit all the time, you stay on top of it, and if you don't, you can slam time when you have it and just rack up that currency and not feel completely punished. I mean, we see that in Torghast now, right? They kind of ripped the Band-Aid off with Torghast and said, if you need stuff from Torghast, go do it as much as you want to.
Yeah.
And people do that. And, we can have a separate discussion about the merits of Torghast as content, but the bottom line is that Torghast offers rewards that you want, and you can you have to deal with the weekly rotation of the wings. You have to deal with the daily rotations of the blessings and curses, but you can decide not to play Torghast for weeks at a time, but not actually fall behind your goals, because when it's time to do it, you can do as much of it as you want until you have the designated amount of currency that you need from it. So I think there are lessons here, and we've seen some good progress in this type of direction within this expansion. But I mean, as it stands, there's no reason to think this is going to change last minute. So just be on top of your 9.2 rep and just look for any opportunities to grab it, because you are going to want your Cinch of Unity as soon as you can get it.
Yeah, I just feel like you make some good points there with Renown as well. I just feel like systems that reflect a critical piece of character power should be something where catch-up is just innately built in from the very start. And if you're choosing to design those systems around anything other than, hey, you know what, I can play, as you said, for 4 hours on this one day a week, you're doing something wrong. When you're designing that content. I 100% think that players who play every single day, log in every single day, should have advantages for doing so. I don't feel like those advantages should be critical components of character power. They can be cosmetic, like, hey, I earn more anima than you a day because, in a week, because I play every day, which means I can buy these cosmetics. I can buy up more mounts and more pets and more, appearances, and I can max out this covenant, max out that covenant. Like, those things, that's daily increase. I think that's great that people are able to do that on a daily basis. I do feel like things like Renown, in general as a system, being able to just go in and grind Torghast for 8 hours in one day because that's what you want to do, and max out your Renown in a covenant, I think that absolutely should be the way it works. I think it's great that it does work that way now. I just want them to make the belt work a similar way, whereas if people want to log in one day and just pound out a whole bunch of whatever it is progression they need towards earning it, and it caps out for the week, great. They should be able to earn that cap in a day doing whatever activities that, make sense for that to happen. So I do feel like that's an important aspect from design that I hope they carry forward. Okay. We are going to talk a little bit about 2022 esports, because there was a big announcement that came out about the 15th anniversary of World of Warcraft esports. And Jason, do you want to take us a little bit through some of this announcement? I know there's a fairly large blog post, but what's the notes on this?
I guess the big thing to know is we have 3 separate formats of WoW esports for 2022, because we have Arena World Championship, if you can believe that, returning for its 15th year. We have Mythic Dungeon International, and we also have Burning Crusade Classic Arena. So that's pretty cool. I mean, we're seeing a somewhat similar structure to last year. We have the EU and NA regions for AWC. We're going to have a series of what they're calling Shadowlands 2022 Season 3 Cups. There's going to be 4 cups scheduled from mid-March through April. And there's some sort of allusion in the post to they're going to try to do an in-person event this summer, which seems a bit ambitious, but sounds cool. Like, if they can do it and be safe with it and make it cool, then I'm on board with it. They're also going to run a similar format for MDI this year with the groups format from season 2, which I think was that was pretty successful, I think. I mean, we've talked MDI to death over the years in the show, and kind of some of the issues with the rules and stuff. We are gonna see that return. I mean, it sounds like basically as we know it, but there are going to be, it's going to be a 24 team group stage for NAEU. China's going to be a separate group. There's going to be a last stand tournament, which I believe they did last year to try to play in for the global finals.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And they also said they're going to do another great push, which I think is the most exciting thing about MDI right now. No details on that yet, but that's coming. And also there are for the Classic Arena, there's going to be a threes tournament, and signups are actually open now until February 9th. And offline brackets are going to be played February 12th and 13th, and the tournament's going to run February 18th through the 20th. So that's pretty cool. They tried to do some esports stuff for Classic, Vanilla Classic. I don't even know what to call it at this point. But Classic didn't kind of have that structure. It was kind of, they did some BGS tournaments and stuff, but they were kind of a mess. You do have Arena in TBC Classic, so you can run those. So it's robust here up to a point. I'm wondering. Last year at the outset, we kind of saw the entire year. This is about half a year's worth of WoW esports. I think I can't imagine that like we see some kind of expansion thing ramp up, after, I don't know, June or something. I think they were talking about for the in-person event. Like, it feels like you could probably squeeze another season into here, but I guess that remains to be seen. Prize pools are, I would say, still kind of on the low side across all of these events. It's just the nature of the beast. They don't invest a lot of money in WoW esports. WoW is a game that's pretty hard to play. It's pretty hard to be a WoW esports athlete professionally without doing anything else. It's just not. It's not really a priority for. It seems like for the company, it's more of like, it's almost more of like an exhibition, and it's like, okay, build your brand around the fact that you can win these tournaments and then go do something with your brand. So it's just reality of the situation. Like a $300,000 prize pool or something for MDI sounds pretty good until you split that across, 24 teams of 5. I don't know exactly how many teams are going to end up in the money, but that starts disappearing pretty fast.
Even if it's 3 teams of 5 and you split it across, 15
right.
people, $300K, comparatively to other esports competitions out there, just isn't as a, I guess, talent grabbing amount as you see inside other esports. So yeah, I mean,
it's nice money for being really good at WoW, but you're not gonna retire off of it.
Yeah, so it's tricky to see these announcements, get super hyped for these announcements, other than from a spectator point of view. From a spectator point of view, it's always great to see this is what the plan's going to be. These are what the events are going to be. They're going to be exciting events. Jump in, check them out. They are going to be cool. If you've enjoyed esports in the past, we're going to see more of it. I think the Great Push is something I'd be super pumped for them to do more of, so that's going to be great. But when it comes from a talent perspective, this is your side gig. This is your side hustle of esports, right? You are someone who competes in, League of Legends or Dota, and then you happen to do Heroes of the Storm as a side gig kind of idea, right? Like that is where this lives as far as esports goes. You're someone who does competitive something else as your or has a full-time job, and then also happens to do World of Warcraft esports. It's tricky to make that a career without being a full-time streamer who just plays games and then also does MDI competitively, right? Like that's the
and I don't think WoW's ever going to be there. I mean, like they also don't have the viewership. They don't have the the outside sponsorship. I mean, yes, Activision, Blizzard, and also Microsoft are companies that are flush with cash, but there's a budget for things, and they budget. I would imagine this is like essentially a marketing budget for these games. Like is what it is. I mean, I think there's going to be some cool stuff. Like depending on metas, arena tends to be really fun to watch. MDI is kind of a mixed bag. I guess we'll see. The big question, I guess, will be for MDI, like how fun is the new affix to see in a competitive way? Like that'll be the wrinkle for this season of MDI, is we'll have the new seasonal affix. But it's going to be. I guess we have 2 new dungeons in the pool too, because we'll have Tazavesh split up. So that does add a bit of a wrinkle. It'll be a bigger pool, and there'll be some new stuff to see in MDI. So that's always cool. But yeah, not really. I mean, all we can assume from the announcement with MDI is that the format, is what we're used to in terms of here's the bracket. These 2 teams play this set of up to 3 dungeons with these affixes, and whoever posts the highest times twice, they move on. We can only assume that's the case, and that's a format I think needs to change. But I will be eager to see what they say the leveled up return of the Great Push later this year. So what does that mean? Are they doing more format changes? Is it a bigger field? Is it going to be bigger stakes? Like that, Great Push is a really cool format. So always interested to hear more about that.
Yeah, they sort of had their testing year with Great Push, realized that it was quite good and people really enjoyed it, and went, okay, we can do more. Let's take this to the next level, and let's hope they really run with it, right? Let's hope this year is a level up. Let's hope next year is another level up. Let's hope they grab onto this great thing, and they don't let it sort of stagnate a bit like they did with MDI, right? That was kind of the big issue with MDI, is it just sort of hit that point where you're like, oh, they didn't really do anything with this. They didn't increase prize pools, increase rewards in game for players who want to actually get Keystone Master and push Keystones higher, add more cosmetics involved to it. Like the fact that there isn't MDI specific cosmetics is bizarre to me. If you compete in the MDI, how are you not getting a tabard that has MDI on it or something, right? Like how is that not a thing that they've done yet with this game? So I hope the level up is something that they actually take seriously, and they really take this thing that people latched onto and enjoyed and grow it, because it's got a lot of potential. So I'm excited for it. Let's see what they choose to do 2022. Okay, with that, we're going to play a quick sounder for our patrons, and we'll be right back. Hi everyone, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Celian, Greg, Kapawi, Nibble the Mighty, and Shorel. Thank you. This sounder is for you. Our Patreon is located over at patreon.com/thestartingzone, where you can check out all of our weekly episodes that take place there, as well as support the show if you choose to hop in on that, which gets you access to all of our patron exclusive events. Now, we asked last week if our patrons wanted episode 500 to be the patron episode for the month, and we didn't really get a huge driving, resounding yes, we want this to happen, which is fine, because the episode will then be more about the patrons when that episode happens. It's going to happen probably not this coming weekend, but the weekend after. We'll probably see it happen towards the end of the month on the 29th or the 30th or the 28th or somewhere in there. We'll announce that next week. But for now, the 25th of January will be our 500th episode, and we'll be doing some giveaways on that show. And so I just want to give a shout out and thank you to all of our patrons. They really do make our show possible. And getting to 500 is certainly been supported by our patrons. I mean, as much as the work that Jason and I put in, you guys support us and help us, and we really appreciate it. We love talking to you on our Discord channel, which you can get to by going to spazbotstudios.com/Discord. Sorry. Oh, geez. thestartingzone.com/Discord. Man, I am going to have to break some habits here. This is taking me some time. Go to thestartingzone.com/Discord, and we'll make that happen. And if you folks have enjoyed this episode of The Starting Zone, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your iTunes or Apple Podcasts. It means a lot to us when you guys leave those reviews, and we read them here live on the show. So thank you again to our patrons. We will have a coming up announcement about when the Q&A is happening. But if you have questions, be sure that you submit them either in the Discord channel or through Patreon, and we will add those into the show if you are not able to make it live. If you're able to make it live, be sure you're in our Discord so that you can join the waiting room channel, and we can drag you in and chat with you live on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, patrons, for your awesome support. And looking forward to talking to you this month. I mean, man, there might be a lot of stuff to talk about after today, and who knows what's going to happen with 9.2 news. I wouldn't be shocked if we have new expansion news very shortly after 9.2 launch as well. So, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster around here for the next couple months, I would think. And also, we are caught up on iTunes 5 stars. So if you want to get a review in for number 500, if you do that this week, we'll probably get it on episode 500, which would be kind of fun. So thanks, everybody. I mean, we are about 340 of these 500s. And then you and I appeared on various episodes over the years with Mick. So we are a very significant chunk of the 500 episode history of the show. And it's been, I can't even believe that we've been doing it this long and we've produced as many episodes. And I don't think we would have made it this far without the patron support. It really helps us keep the show at a high level and, get bonus shows out and just do all the stuff that we want to do with it. So thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. With that, we're going to wrap up episode 499 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can go on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. You can also join our Discord, as I mentioned before, at thestartingzone.com/Discord. You also have all the links to all of our social medias over there, including YouTube. Everything's just, / The Starting Zone. If you're trying to find any of our stuff, it's all there. So you can find YouTube, Twitch channel, all that stuff. We are producing these episodes in a visual format as well. So if you want to give us a follow or a subscribe, feel free to go to either our Twitch channel or our YouTube channel and do that. We would appreciate that. Help those channels grow a little bit. We've been seeing people watching the videos, so clearly there is some interest there when you're getting up there on the views. So thank you very much for that.
They're relatively new channels.
Yeah.
We rebranded. We split some stuff off and redid some stuff recently. So, cruise by there, give it a subscribe or a follow or whatever platform you're on. It would be appreciated because those channels are just little babies and we got to help them grow up big and strong.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. If you do want to contact us and leave us your feedback or a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com. And we have a little store. It's run over on TeePublic, so teepublic.com. You do /stores with an S on the end, and then /thestartingzone, and you can find it there. Or you can go to any of our website posts and just click on the banner at the bottom or click on the link at the bottom and head on over to our store, and you can pick up some swag from there, some shirts and mugs and stickers and that kind of stuff. And they frequently do 35% off sales, so be sure you're checking for when the sales are happening and picking some stuff up during that. That's always nice to get a little support from that too. Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, always talking whenever I'm doing in and around WoW and other games and other stuff. So come say hi.
Yeah, and if you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. I've been streaming some more stuff here and there, so that's been kind of fun to do, and I appreciate everyone stopping by for those. So thank you very much. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and job's done.